Elastic Block Store, or also called as EBS in short. These are hard disk for your EC2 instances, or should I say virtual hard disks. We call this virtual hard disk as EBS volumes. When you launch an EC2 instance, it comes with a root volume. If we selected a Linux, we have seen previously we got 8 GB of a root volume on which your operating system runs. But apart from that, you need to store more data from the database, or your operating system data itself sometimes grow more, or any file-based data. Then 8 GB won't be enough. We need to add more storage. So either we can expand the existing root volume, or we can create a new EBS volume and attach it to the instance. EBS is block-based storage. It's not same as S3. S3 is a file-based storage. This EBS volume runs your operating system in your EC2 instance. You can store any kind of data in that. So when you attach a new EBS volume, you can partition it, format it, and mount it, and then you can start using it. Same like a hard disk concept. EBS volumes are specific to an availability zone. So if you have created EBS volume in a zone, it's available only in that zone. If you want to copy it into a different zone, then we need to use snapshot. EBS will internally do some data replication, which will make sure your EBS volumes are stable, sturdy, and you don't lose your data. Snapshot is a process where you take backup of this EBS volume. So in case of failure, which can happen and which happens also, you can recover your data back from the snapshot. So let's do an exercise where we'll attach a new EBS volume and mount it for a service to store its data. So these two EC2 instances from our previous exercise, this one is running your web service, and this, let's terminate this Mars because I don't need it. So I'm going to say instance state, terminate, yes, terminate. When I'm terminating the instance, I'm going to go to volumes section. Okay, the volume is already gone. You see one existing volume. This is the root volume of our EC2 instance. You see their attachment information. If you click on this, it will take you to your instance, Earth Web 01. Let's power it on. Or from the EC2 instance, from here you can see the details of your EBS volume, root device. And you can click on that, and that will take you to your EBS volume. So that's the root volume, 8 GB, which contains the operating system, and it's always better you give it a name. So I'll say earth-web01-root-vol. Let's go back to our EC2 instance, and we will log into our EC2 instance. For this exercise, if you would like to create a new EC2 instance, you can do that also, but I'm going to do it on the same EC2 instance. So df-h is going to show me mount points in Linux, and fdisk-l that shows me the hard disk and its partition. So that's our hard disk. It's around 8 GB of size, and it has a partition xvda1. That's the first partition, and it is mounted on a root directory. So that runs everything basically. So anything that I'm going to store in this EC2 instance will get stored into that partition, because everything is under the root volume. There is no separate partition. But sometimes I would like to have some directory on a different partition. So in this exercise, we will install MySQL server, and MySQL server will store its data in this directory var-lib mysql by default. So as of now, there won't be any separate partition, but before I install MySQL server, I'm going to create this directory and mount it on a separate partition on a new EBS volume. So let's create that directory, var lib mysql, and now let's get to our AWS console. We will go to volumes, click on create volume. Now this is the page where you give information about the volume. Before I did create volume, I should know where my EC2 instance is located, in which zone. EC2 instance, it's in AP South 1A, it's in 1A zone. So I need to create the volume in the same zone. So let's go back to volume, create volume, 1A. So it's in the C, it's that zone I have to select. I cannot have my instance in one zone and volume in another zone. If that's the case, I won't be able to attach the volume. I'm going to give it a very decent size, which is 5 GB. And now the first thing over here which you see is volume type. There are different types of volume. It's based on the speed, and that's based again on the cost. So magnetic is the slowest volume type, generally used to store backups and old archive which we don't access regularly. It's slowest and it's cheapest, dirt cheap really. Then you have provisioned IOPS, which is fastest and also expensive, mostly used for databases, to run database where there will be too many SQL queries, transactions happening, too much of IO. So you need a better hard disk speed. So you can go with provisioned IOPS. And general purpose is just a general purpose. It falls in the middle of magnetic and provisioned IOPS. If you're not sure, if you don't want very slow storage, and you don't even want to invest too much money on the storage on EBS volume, then you can go with general purpose. So we are going to select that general purpose. But then there are two more here, cold HDD. This is if you want huge storage, like for big data, huge partitions. When the data size is too huge, you can go with cold HDD. And if you want optimized, if you want fast storage but huge storage, then you can go with throughput optimized HDD. Okay, prices will vary. So we will go with general purpose. I'm going to keep it 5 GB. So you also keep 5 GB, because more than 30 GB there will be cost on the volume. So let's keep it 5 GB only. And then you have tags here. It's important you tag your volume. If you have a lot of EC2 instances and a lot of volume, and when they are detached, it's going to be difficult for you to find your volume. So better you name it properly. So I'm going to say earth-web01-db-vol. You can give more tags if you want. That's going to be always better. Let's create the volume. So volume is getting created. And state, it says available. That means it's not attached to any instance. If it's attached, it's going to show in use, and you will also see attachment information. As of now, our volume that we created is available and it's ready to be attached. So let's say action, attach volume, and find your instance, select it and say attach. And it says in use, it's attached. So let's open or log into our EC2 instance. So here we are back again to our EC2 instance. Okay, I got logged out, my session is hang. I need to re-log in. As I told you in previous videos, you run the top command or something which can engage this SSH session so it doesn't hang. Or you just hit enter a few times, it will release it, then you can log in back. Okay, now fdisk-l should show us the new hard disk. Yes, there we go, at around 5 GB size. Now we will first partition it, then format it, and then mount it. So to partition, I'm going to use fdisk utility /dev. Make sure you give the right name of your hard disk. And to create new partition, I'll hit N, primary, Partition number 1, that's default. I'm going to take that, hit enter. First sector, I'm going to say just hit enter, select the first sector. Instead of selecting last sector, I'm going to give the size. So plus, let's say 3 GB of volume, plus 3 GB of partition. So out of 5 GB, I'm just taking 3 GB of partition. Well, that's done. Let's hit P to print the partition table. Okay, there we see XVDF1. That's our partition. Let's write the changes with W. If it's a Windows system, you can go to manage disk and from there you can do the partition. Linux, we partition first. fdisk-l, we have the partition. Now it's time to format it. And I'm going to use extension 4 format, mkfs.ext4/dev xvdf1. Make sure you give proper partition name, otherwise you may accidentally format something else. Okay, that's formatted. Now next step, I'm going to mount it. So I already created var lib mysql directory and I'm going to mount it /dev/xvdf1/var lib mysql. Now that's a temporary mount, but still we can see it. Yes, we see that. But if I want to make it permanent, I will update the fstab file. So /dev xvdf1 and the destination where I'm going to mount it, var lib mysql. Format type is going to be extension 4. Option defaults and 00 for dump code and fsck code. So that's going to be the permanent mount. First, to test it, first of all, we'll unmount it. Var lib mysql. So it's gone now, it's unmounted. So I'm going to run mount-a command, which will read my fstab entry and mount it. If this runs properly, that means information is good in fstab file. The partition is also formatted properly. So you see there around 3 GB of size. Now we will set up a MySQL service. When I install MySQL service, it will by default store its data in var lib MySQL directory, and then it's mounted on a separate partition. So MySQL service is available now with the name of MariaDB -server, and that package is there. So it's another branch of MySQL, MariaDB. So let's install it. Yum install. So let's install MariaDB server. Okay, it's installed. Now let's start its service. systemctl start. Okay, we started MariaDB service. Now it should started storing data in var lib MySQL directory, and there you go. Now it has data on var lib MySQL directory, but that's not on the root partition. We know we have mounted it on /dev xvdf1, which is coming up from a separate volume. Like that, the requirements will come. Initially, when we have taken the requirement of launching an EC2 instance, at the same time you may have requirement about having a different partition or a bigger size of a particular directory. So you can fulfill that requirement by creating an EBS volume, attaching it to the instance, format it, partition it, format, and mount it to the respective directory. These EBS volumes are very efficient. They are just like pen drives, USB drive. You can attach and detach. If an EC2 instance is not coming up, it's not booting up from its root volume, so you can shut it down, detach its root volume, attach it to any other instance, and you can recover your data. So there are also instances where data which is stored in our partition on our EBS volume gets corrupted, we delete them by mistake, or it gets overwritten. In such cases, before getting into such cases, you can take a snapshot of those EBS volume and then you can recover data from it. That we will see in the next video. So let's conclude this video. I will see you in the next one. Thank you very much for watching.